Gordon has probably been the first person to study several hundreds religions nobody studied before, but one of these is the Church of Scientology. When he was a young man and breaking the hearts of many young women, he was also the first to seriously study Scientology, started it as early as 1964. And you would say it was a bad timing because in the academia it was not popular to study new religions, and truth be told, to study religions in general, which in that year was believed to be disappearing. Here you see anthropologist Anthony Wallace, who said the evolutionary future of religion is extinction. But in reality, there has never been a good time for studying esoteric or Gnostic religions. We can call Gordon Melton, as Connie said, a man of the Renaissance, not only because of his global, truly ecumenic interests, but because the Renaissance was the last good time to take esoteric religion seriously. In 2012, Walter Hanegraaff, you see here, wrote a book, Esotericism and the Academy, showing how esoteric religions got expelled from the academia and the main line in three subsequent waves of opposition. The first way was Protestantism, which claimed that esoteric religions were pseudo-Catholic, as they incorporated pagan elements into Christianity. The second way was Enlightenment, who didn't care about pure Christianity, but claimed esoteric religions were irrational and against rationalism. And the third way was Marxism, which is still around in a way, claiming esoteric religions are inherently right-wing or Nazi, which is of course wrong. Think of Annie Besant's Theosophy, and she was all but right-wing and actually promoted a number of liberal causes. Now, Protestant opposition against esoteric new religions still alive in evangelical counter-cultism, and Gordon Melton is an ordained Methodist elder, but doesn't share this point of view. But it's also true that some extreme counter-cultists would accuse the Methodism of being a crypto-Catholic form of Protestantism. And I even found a pamphlet accusing John Wesley of being manipulated by the Jesuits. So that's probably why he's sympathetic as a Methodist to new religions. And of course, apart from evangelical and counter-cultism, we have secular anti-cultism, which carries on the legacy of the Enlightenment, of being not sympathetic to any new religions. And by the way, Gordon Melton worked on the distinction between counter-cultism and anti-cultism, although there is a risk that I was the first one to introduce this distinction. When he started studying new religions, there was also a lot of anti-religious bias, particularly in Europe and in journalism. And a bit less in the United States, but when he started coming to Europe, Gordon realized folks there were not extremely sympathetic to religion in general. Now, one center of it all is Church of Scientology for two reasons. It's a global, ambitious new religion, and its ideas can be traced back to Western esotericism and Gnosticism. In my opinion, the first crucial contribution by Melton to the study of Scientology was precisely to classify it. Of course, not everybody would agree, in the field of Western esotericism, and to show the link of Scientology to the Gnostic tradition. Recently, a book by Italian Catholic priest and philosopher, Father Aldo Natale Terrin, has also reconstructed Scientology's worldview as a modern form of Gnosticism. So it goes very much in the same direction, and it's an important book, so far available only in Italian, unfortunately. Now, Melton incited two very important consequences. The first one, scholars started to pay attention to the presence of Western esotericism in contemporary new religions and proved Durkheim wrong. Durkheim says there is no church of magic and esotericism doesn't generate organized movements, but he was proved wrong in the 20th century. And the second is, since Melton believes Gnosticism is a form of religion, he also concludes Scientology is indeed a religion. And his arguments were quoted by many courts. I'm Italian, and in 1997, the Italian Supreme Court ruled Scientology as a religion, quoting Melton repeatedly in his analysis of why Scientology is indeed a religion, but that happened in other countries as well. A milestone in Melton's scientific study of Scientology were his studies of the Sea Org in 1999-2001, and he revisited these studies in a recent articles in the Journal of Cesura, I'm the editor of in 2018. And he demonstrated that the Sea Org is an ordered community with some similarities to the religious orders we can find in Catholicism, Buddhism, and other religions. Predictably, all these conclusions didn't endear Melton to counter-cultists, anti-cultists, and academics with a secular anti-religious bias, not to mention deprogrammers, some of them with distinguished criminal records, such as Rick Ross. Rick Ross was a vocal critic of Melton and recently claimed he invented for Melton the category of cult apologist. I don't know whether it's true, but Rick Ross is an interesting character. Before becoming a deprogrammer, he had a career as for burglarize and robbing jewelry shops. So he's surely an expert in many fields. Critics, however, didn't understand what Melton was all about, and Melton's approach to Scientology was largely to try to clarify the methodological issues. One methodological issue he noticed, it is not true there is not enough material about Scientology. The problem is actually there is too many. And so how you classify all this material, which includes the immense literature published by Scientology itself, anti-cult literature, depositions in court cases. And he collected most of this literature, which was a monumental task, but gave its study of Scientology its trademark completeness and reliability. Now, most of Melton's critics, including Rick Ross, but also academics such as Stephen Kent, will focus on details of L. Ron Hubbard's biography and some of the church legal cases without considering the larger picture and leaving unanswered questions why Scientology attracted thousands, what is its place in the context of contemporary religions. But even on details, critics were often wrong. For instance, it was taken for granted for many years that L. Ron Hubbard lied when he claimed to have an academic degree in engineering. Until in 2018, an independent scholar called Al Camacho wrote a very long paper proving that L. Ron Hubbard never claimed to have a degree in engineering and actually poked fun in public at those inside and outside the church Scientology who claim he had a degree. He said I was a very bad student, so I flunked my exams, and I don't understand why some in the church still call me an engineer, because I'm not an engineer. So, and I believe as time goes by, on many details, the critics of Melton will be proved wrong as well. Now, Gordon's side emerges victorious in the academia, where anti-cult positions exist but were marginalized, but anti-cult stereotypes about brainwashing, for instance, still exist in the popular culture. Here you see Leah Remini's that just recently announced her audience is getting bored of her series about Scientology, so she will produce a new series against Jehovah's Witnesses, of which admittedly she knows nothing, but that's not important in the world of entertainment. Melton also has studied the relationship between religion and violence, and has admonished many times that wars have consequences. For example, and I insist the example is mine, not Melton's, Church of Scientology has documented several recent incidents of violence against the church. I mean physical violence, people driving cars to crash into windows of Scientology or threatening to kill Scientology. And some of these criminals have declared they were inspired or motivated by Leah Remini's TV series. No, so these questions is very important, but I believe they are not the most important. The most important part of Melton's work is to show that Scientology should be taken seriously. Many scholars like to study Scientology's controversies, fake news, and legal cases. These were never ignored by Melton, but most of his work focused on studying the theology and the link of Scientology's worldview with the esoteric and Gnostic tradition. As a slightly younger scholar, I learned several lessons for Melton. I'll try now to list. First, as Connie mentioned, there are no forbidden subjects in the academic study of religion. If somebody tells us you should not study this subject, that's really a clue that we should study the subject, and it's very worthwhile to study the subject. I'm sure you will like the cartoon, which is against not accepting to be bullied. We should not be bullied by the media or by anti-cultists, which have no right to control academic research. So we should kick back to the bullies and say you don't control the academic research. And Gordon would say I'm Count Dracula of Transylvania. Very good arguments for this. Also, it's not true that anti-cultists have a higher moral ground. Those criticize Melton. You see a good set here, Alexander Dworkin, Jerry Armstrong, and Pastor Gando from Germany, which I believe was long since dead, but resurfaced in Siberia. Probably they kept him under ice for a few years. And the other is a leader of Italian anti-cultism. He will spend more time in attacking me than Melton. But all these good folks went to Siberia to applaud the incarceration of Scientologists in Russia, something which has been condemned by European Court of Human Rights, the United States government, and other instances. So actually they applaud persecutors, and they don't have any special moral ground to teach us. Also, others should not dictate the agenda. The media, of course, or the anti-cultists are much more interested in legal case or the finances of Scientology, and these are not uninteresting subjects, but as scholars, we should feel free to reject these suggestions and say there are other questions like the theology of L. Ron Hubbard, or what motivated the ordinary Scientologists to remain in the church. And I believe this paper has been about Gordon Melton as a man of the Renaissance and the moral example of integrity. But I believe that after having been for many years quite on the minority, even among new religion scholars, as studying Scientology in depth, now he may take comfort in the fact that there are young scholars following suit, building on what he built. If you go to the book exhibit, you see this new book by Donald Westbrook, which is one of the younger scholars who took Melton's lessons seriously and produced a book about ordinary Scientologists, so not the ex-members and not Tom Cruise, but about the normal people he met and interviewed in churches of Scientology around the world, which perhaps are more interesting. Oh, I'm finished. This is the last slide. Thank you.